Hey, and welcome to this new YouTube video. In this video we're going to talk about how you can actually understand yourself for maximum business success and why that's actually so important. So let's dive into the video. So the thing that is really holding you back, if you for example are already doing all of the routines, you've optimized your health, like you are being productive, is your strengths and your weaknesses. Actually knowing what those are to the point, like to the core. That's the most important thing. Because the thing is, you can try to work on your weaknesses all the time, which you should. That's where professional growth lies. But where you will really excel is your strengths. And if you know your strengths and you can play into them into business, so you can, for example, outsource your weaknesses, that's where the real gold is. And that's what I've seen now. Working together with Jorn and with Jamar, my two co-founders at P Club, that's where the real beauty lies. When I was doing everything alone, like the parts that I was doing well, I was doing very well, but there were certain kind of weaknesses that I had that I just couldn't fix on my own. And now that I'm working together with two others, the thing that is maybe my weakness, they are strong at, and vice versa. And that's where really the magic lies. So let's dive into it. Like why is this so important? First, look at all the big companies that, like the big startups that have gone very large, right? If you look at Apple, Steve Jobs was a visionary, he was a sales guy, but he actually wasn't that good at the product. People always think that he was all about the product, and he was in a sense, in a creative sense, but he actually wasn't that much about the real technical things. That's what Steve Wozniak was about. He was about all the technical stuff, and that's what made Apple so successful. You had one guy that was a visionary, and you had the other guy that was very good at the technical stuff. So they masked each other's weaknesses, because Steve Wozniak was an introvert. He couldn't sell, he couldn't talk about what he was doing, he was in his head a lot. Whereas Steve Jobs, he might be talking a lot, he might be a smart guy, but the things that Steve Wozniak did, he could never do. So that's why it's so important to really look at your strengths and weaknesses, be honest about it, and then look at, hey, can my co-founder or the person that I'm working with, can he fill in my weaknesses, and can I fill in his? Or you maybe you hire someone that can fill in that weaknesses. And then the most important thing is actually focus. Like you could be good at, 5 different things, and you are bad at 2 other things. What would happen is that your focus goes like this. It goes to this, maybe you do sales, maybe you do marketing, maybe you also do a bit of the product, and you also design some funnels. And you're not so good at this one thing, so it's like a half straw. But what happens is that your focus is very diverted. So if you are, you're working on your strengths and your weaknesses, then you can never really focus. Whereas, let's say you would just focus on your 2 strengths, which you're already good at, so you already have an advantage in them. Maybe you could go like this, and maybe you could go like this. And I know it's a weird drawing, but you get the point, right? Like if you focus on one thing and that thing is your strength, you will be able to get into the compound effect way faster. Right? Because for the thing that you are weak at, it takes a longer time to actually get into the compound effect and get this scaling thing. Whereas the thing you are naturally good at, it will be very easy to do it. So now that we've understood that, right? We know why it's so important to actually know yourself, know your strengths and weaknesses. How can we find out those? 1, already write them down now. So before we do anything, I'm going to explain the test to you. Already write down what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are your top 3 strengths, what are your top 3 weaknesses, and then we're going to do a test and you can see if it really fits that image or that's not the case. So let's get into it. So the test that we're going to use is the Understand Myself test from Jordan Peterson. In this test, you will find out the Big 5. The Big 5 is one of the most well-researched personality test in the world. And what it does, it tests how your personality is in 5 different traits. And those 5 different traits are then being made out of 2 other traits. So to give you an example, the first trait is agreeableness. And this is basically how well you agree with someone, how nice you are to people. And that's made out of compassion and politeness. So basically compassion is how much do you care about others, and politeness is how polite are you. For example, if someone in authority says something to you, how fast would you say something against that? That's politeness. And if you know those things, then you can also find out your strengths and your weaknesses. So we're not going over the whole test in this video. I'm just going to show you my scores, what I got out of it. Then you can make the test yourself and you can make the same connections. So for me to analyze it, my agreeableness is quite high. My compassion is moderately high. And my politeness is moderately high. This is what I noticed as well, and I'll talk about this later. Then my conscientiousness is also high, moderately high. This is one of the best predictors for job performance there is. So this is a very important one. My industriousness, this is quite funny. My industriousness is very high. So this is basically how hard you work, how assertive you are, and not really assertive, but that you're not procrastinating. So for example, someone that is very low in industriousness would procrastinate a lot, and I'm the opposite. But on the other hand, I am typical or average in orderliness. And this is basically being chaotic, not really following strict routines. And this is also what I noticed in myself, is that I am very structured. It looks like that from the outside, but actually in my head, I'm very not structured. And if I don't keep myself to certain kind of routines, then I get into chaos very, very quickly. Then my extroversion is quite low. So my enthusiasm is moderately low. Assertiveness is typical or average. Neuroticism is moderately low. Withdrawal is typical or average, and volatility is moderately low. Volatility basically means like how up and down you are. So neuroticism basically means the amount of negative emotions you experience and the fluctuation in that. And of course, extroversion, which we already talked about, that's what you know. So basically how extroverted you are, how introverted you are. So for me, I'm more introverted. And then the last one is openness to experience. Intellect for me is typical or average. So this is basically the abstract thinking. So it isn't about the real intellect, it's just about abstract thinking. And then aesthetics is high, which is more creativity. And now if you look at my strengths and weaknesses, this is what I see in myself as well. What are my strengths? I'm a hard worker. I always go, I always finish my tasks and whatever I want to do. I also notice that I'm very caring towards people and I want everyone to have a good time. And so for example, if I talk to clients, then I want to make sure that they are getting value out of what we're doing and that we are giving them a great result. That's already a big strength of mine. But for example, if you look at my weaknesses, is that orderliness is quite low. And this is also what I see in myself. I can be very chaotic and I'm not really the person that really finishes things. And what do I mean with that? For example, we made the presentations for our new program. So we revamped the whole program. And we sent out all the presentations to each other. So me to Jorn and Jamar. And Jorn noticed that the fonts we were using was a bit different. So can't go into the details, but there was something different we were using. And that's something that I wouldn't even have spotted. Like for me, it's just, oh, we finished the presentations, let's go, let's present them, go, go, go. And for him, it was like, hey, oh, I actually see this detail that is not right. So his orderliness is also a lot higher and his attention to detail is a lot higher. And that's what I mean, like that is a weakness of mine, but it's a strength of him. So that's where he can correct me. And that's how you can actually find out your strengths and weaknesses. So what I suggest you to do is that you you do this test, you read all the things that are there and you start to find your strengths and your weaknesses. And then the best point, what you should do is that you should look at, hey, the weaknesses that I have, how can I outsource them in my business? So maybe I can hire a VA, maybe my co-founder can do it, maybe I can hire someone to do it, because that's the most important thing. Sure, you want to build yourself in a different way, but to get your goals in the fastest way possible, let's say I am not that high in orderliness, then it's better to have someone next to me that is very, very high in orderliness and they can correct me. On the other end, I'm very creative. I can think about a lot of new stuff, get new ideas and talk to people about it. And then someone next to me that's maybe lower in aesthetics, lower in creativity, I would pair up well with him because I could think of a lot of things. I could get it started and then someone else could get it finished, right? So that's basically the video. The test will be in the description below. If you have any questions, send them to me below. Also send your scores to me, maybe via Instagram, put them here on YouTube, and then we can analyze them and we can talk about it. Awesome guys, see you in the next video.